My name is Shamsun. So I'm a member of the Enable Homerton network, and I also have another couple of members with me today. So if they'd just like to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Eloise. I'm a radiographer and I'm part of the core team for Enable.
Hello, I'm Catherine Pelly and I'm the chief nurse and I'm a member of the Enable Homerton network.
Great, thank you. So we just wanted to do this short interview with Catherine today to sort of, I guess, find out about her experiences as a disabled member of staff, and just a little bit about um, how she's getting on, and also talking about her involvement and our involvement also with the Enable Homerton network and why we have come to exist as a network. Um, so we'll just talk through a bit about some of the. We'll go through some questions with Catherine, and then we'll also share with you along the way some slides that we've put together that will talk a little bit about the network and how you can get in touch as well. So thanks for joining us. So Eloise, would you like to
Sure. So
take?
our aim is to create an inclusive workplace where disabled and differently abled employees feel empowered and also managers feel equipped to support a diverse workforce.
So Catherine, would you like to start off by telling us a little bit about your disability, if you wouldn't mind, please?
Yeah, uh, thank you and thank you for asking. So I have a benign brain tumour called an acoustic neuroma, and as a result of that tumour, which is growing on my cochlear nerve in my left ear, I am deaf in my left ear. I also have some other physical challenges. My balance isn't um, great. I'm at risk of falls. I have chronic invasive tinnitus, and I've got some nerve involvement as a result of the damage that the tumour and I've had radiation on that tumour have done to that. Um, and I've lost my hearing um, uh, virtually my left ear is a little bit over the last 10 years, and it's deteriorated significantly in the last 12 months since treatment.
Thank you for explaining that. And if we can just talk about what that brings us nicely into what is disability. So disability is defined under the Equality Act 2010 as if you have a physical or mental impairment that has a substantial and long-term negative effect on your ability to do normal daily activities. Okay, so that's the definition under the Equality Act. But we know that um, some people have short-term disabilities as well that might not affect them their whole lives. But I think the majority of um, long-term disability is covered under the Equality Act 2010. So, Catherine, if you could also tell us, does does your disability have any effect on you being able to carry out your day-to-day duties at work? And if so, how has that impacted on you?
Um, so as a result of being single-sided deaf, I wear hearing aids. So like anybody with a significant hearing loss, I have the challenge of how do I effectively uh, communicate in not just in my the work life, but my personal life. So all aspects of my life are affected by that disability. And there are the other kind of symptoms and issues that I have as a result of my disability just mean that I have got to consider um, how I do things on a day-to-day basis. As I said earlier, I'm at risk of falls, and I have got to kind of manage my balance issues. But the main issue is my hearing. Um, and I suppose one of the things that the last 14 months of a pandemic have made some of that worse. Um, I hadn't necessarily realised because I'd lost my hearing over time that I'd learnt a little bit of lip read a bit. I now have to communicate with everybody, as most of us do, through a mask, screens, all of those things. So yeah, that kind of constant concentration on how I hear and and how I communicate is a kind of daily thing, and it's you don't correct your hearing by wearing hearing aids in the way you correct your vision by wearing glasses. And I've constantly got to think about the situations that I'm in and how I manage that um, hearing loss.
So I have an affinity with that as well, Catherine. So being visually impaired myself, I also have to have some sort of situational awareness, and I have to plan ahead quite a lot as well when I'm doing some work activities. So I also have to factor in myself into any risk assessments that we do within my work. So yeah, there are challenges as well, but with plenty of planning, most of these challenges can be sort of overcome. Um, and I guess we just do the best that we can with the tools that we have, tools that we're given. So yeah, so thank you for sharing that one, Catherine.
Yeah. So our last question is, Catherine, how do you think being a member of Enable has helped you, and how might it help other people?
So yeah, I suppose ultimately I joined the network as a disabled member of staff rather than as the chief nurse. Um, and part of that was my own need for support. So I'm very, very well supported in my job. I'm very well supported outside of work as well to be somebody who has got a communication difficulty and challenge. And I think, as you said, it's a constant thought about it. I have to work out where I sit in a room. If I walk down the corridor, I can't have somebody on my left side. All of those kind of things. But joining the network for me was also about how could I get support from people who understood those little things that people don't think about. For me, I have to think about all the time. But also, I did recognise that as the chief nurse, I could influence the organisation and support people um, to be more open. Um, it took me personally a long time to tell people about my disability for very difficult reasons. And I had some support through the specialist service that support me externally to become more comfortable with my disability. And I suppose I think if I can help people understand how you manage and work with people with disability. So I'm particularly I mentioned masks and screens earlier. How do we help staff become deaf aware? Because actually most people aren't deaf aware necessarily. They think they are, but they're not. And so using the network to help educate uh, our workforce to be better with each other and with our patients, but also how do we support people? Because it can be quite lonely. Uh, and so if it is a bit lonely, how do you know that somebody can understand that uh, actually you've had a bad day? But I think also as well, the organisation is very, very supportive, um, but won't necessarily always get it right for everybody all of the time because people's needs change. And, if I'm having a bad day because I've had a bad day before I get here with my hearing, it's not the organisation's responsibility to support. I've got to live with that. So and networks are a brilliant way to bring people together who wouldn't necessarily meet as well. So you get to know. So I get to understand about your job, and we were talking about your job earlier. It's an amazing job you've got. So actually, it's also about that connection of people as well, not just the reason that we've got a common issue, as it were, but actually we can share our expertise and experience of being in what I think is a fantastic organisation.
Shamsun, what does it mean for you?
So for me, yeah, I kind of share what Catherine said. Really, I felt um, within the organisation prior to the formation of the network, there wasn't like a central place for people with staff with disabilities or staff that were just interested in disability to have a space to meet and talk about issues affecting them or maybe their colleagues whilst they're at work. So so for me, the main driver for joining the network and was basically to link up with other people of a similar mind or similar mindset, and to make the organisation, I guess, a better place for people to work in, and to have a good experience whilst they've got a disability. And I feel that this work could, I guess, pave the way for maybe new recruits to feel confident that they're going to be coming into an organisation that will look after them and support them to, you know, basically reach their potential in whatever career that they're doing in the organisations. That was my main drivers for wanting to join.
For me, I feel more empowered by having joined, which I hadn't anticipated. And I'm very lucky. My team are really supportive, and they have been from when I first was employed here. My condition is a mental health condition, so it's non-epileptic seizure disorder, and it's not an easy one to understand. But even when so I've spent 20 years with epilepsy, and even when I had epilepsy, I really struggled to talk about that with people, and I want to say admit, but just like acknowledge that and ask for help. So um, yeah, I think it's really important. And as you were both saying about the situational, being in situations where you have to think about how that will impact you is different for me. Um, a lot of it's about if a scenario is likely to make me more anxious, how I can manage myself in that scenario, and yeah, just that kind of thing. Um, but I think one of the things in with disability, and that we hope that Enable will do, is to help people feel that they understand what disabilities are and maybe recognize that they have one when and they could access more help. And then also is to join the network and meet more people who experience things in a similar way. Or the four core members of Enable are Katie Cornish, she's our chair, um, and Shamsun, who's on the call with me, Eloise, and then Ian also is part of the team, and he deals predominantly with reasonable adjustments.
Yeah, so if anyone is interested in wanting to know more about the network, or just wanted to get in touch with if you had any questions or any specific queries, we do have a mailbox we will have access to. So if you do want to email us, please do so at huh-tr.enablehomerton@nhs.net. So, Catherine, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. I think it would be a really great inspiration to other colleagues as well. That someone so high up in the organisation is confident to talk about, their disability and sharing that story with everyone. So, really, thank you for that. We're really grateful for your
Yeah,
time.
thank you.
Thank you for asking, and thank you for kind of being the driving force behind the network, which is brilliant. But also, if there's anybody does want to understand more, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about my experience, and certainly, particularly if they want support around being deaf aware, because there's definitely more we need to be doing around that. So thank you both
Thank
for your
you.
commitment.
Thank you.